Sorry, I had to get that life up.
Alrighty, so
Great.
here is our Business 220 presentation. We're team number 9. I'm Haley.
I'm Austin.
I'm Kazuma.
And today we're going to be going over a little bit about what we could have done better and just kind of a review of our Business 220 simulation.
So, planning before our simulation began, our expected EBT was 247,267. And then our assigned roles, I was in charge, going in, I was the decision maker. So deciding what ales to produce and how much of each ale we should be producing each month, and also tracking the monthly sales.
And I was the production order creator, and I managed our loans. So I paid those loans off and just made sure we always had some production orders in the queue.
Yeah, I was just checking the work center queue and keeping track of lost sales.
So to begin our production orders, we started off with 1 Alley Cat, 1 Taj Mahal, and 2 Edgar Ale. And this was at the very beginning of January because we knew Edgar Ale was a winter month or a winter ale, so we need more production of that during January. And Alley Cat's a summer ale, so we wouldn't need as much of that. And as you can see in the little graph in the corner, we have the months versus total quantity. So there's a lot of Alley Cat produced, but in the summer months, whereas Edgar Ale and Taj Mahal more are year round, and then also more of into the winter months.
Yeah, goods sold per month. This was basically me watching the work center queue, making sure we didn't have any lost sales. That's also on slide 4. And then I made my mistake. I think we lost sales in April. It was for Alley Cat. We lost almost 10,000 units. So that could have been a little bit higher in April, even though April was the second highest month it shows. And that had to do also with the fifth fermenter, I'm pretty sure. Because I think I mentioned it during the simulation, but we weren't. It was the first time we used the fifth fermenter, so it was a little bit awkward. And so yeah, that's why that happened. But otherwise, April would have been the highest month. So that would be fixed out for the next simulation. Let me see the next slide. Planning. So the next slide over. Yeah, there. Yeah, take. Oh, they must have got the $50,000 loan, but instead of a 30K. But that was like the overall year. And then yeah, we lost a handful of sales for Alley Cat, and that was mostly in April. April and I believe also May, but mostly April. Like 10,000 units almost.
Yeah, so with that, we're taking out that loan for 50,000. We not only lost 20,000 kind of on our EBT after paying off that loan, but also the interest that we had to pay on that, which hurt our EBT a little bit at the end. But looking at our inventory chart here, you can see that at the start of the year, we had really low Alley Cat quantities, but we had really high Edgar and Taj Mahal quantities. But then as the summer months hit, everything started to level out until the end where I believe we might have had our prices too high and our production too high, which made our inventory increase. And so we had some extra inventory that we paid for that we didn't sell, which also lost us a little bit of ABT. But right at the end, we decided to lower Taj Mahal and Edgar Ale prices to try and increase our demand for those. And it didn't do quite enough. It did help us drop them a little bit, but overall not enough to hit zero at the end there.
Can I mention something about the before we move on about the loan? 'Cause I just remembered the loan
Oh
that
yeah.
we paid off. Yeah, we paid off, I believe, 3 portions, or was it two payments? I think the first was 5,000, right?
Yeah, we made a couple payments, and then I believe right around like June or July when we got more demand for Alley Cat, we paid the entire thing off
Yeah.
a
And
little
so
bit
yeah,
early.
yeah, I think because we had, I think, like 30. I think we had 25K before we paid off that 5K.
Yeah.
So we held that. Yeah, like you said, we should have just paid off the whole 25K, whatever we had, and then like that was lower interest a little bit more, and then we paid off the rest of it, even though it was a 50K loan, not a 31. But
Yeah.
when was that? When was that 5K paid? Do you remember or no?
I don't remember.
I think it was in the end of the third month, about.
End of the third
Yeah.
month.
Yeah,
Okay.
when we could start, because that's when we started actually making
Yeah.
revenue off of the sales that we
I'll
were.
say it
So
would
we
have
had
been the first month we had positive profits.
Yeah.
So around April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if we did do the 30K, so next simulation we do the 30K loan at 50K, and we also have like around the similar profits of like 25K, I think it was when we paid off the 5K. We
Hmm.
just pay off the
Hmm.
25K right away, and yeah, and then there'll be
Yeah, we'd be able to
Yeah.
pay it off faster. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
noted.
Yeah. Yep. And then for our ending EBT, we got $262,618, which was a little bit below the target goal, but I believe that had a lot to do with our overproduction, and then also just the loan definitely hurt us. But our amount of lost sales, we only really lost sales in Alleycat at 11,565 cases, um, which did hurt us a little bit, but overall, I don't think it damaged us too much to the point where it was the biggest player in our ending EBT. But as you see, our ending inventory, we had a little over 8,000 cases of Alley Cat, another little over 8,000 of Edgar, and then same thing with Taj. So a pretty even amount for all of those, which if we were running a 2-year simulation would probably be nice to have that extra inventory. But based on the 1-year simulation, I feel like we should have had a little bit lower ending inventory in order to increase our profits. Um, and then again, our larger loan was paid off by early June.
Okay, so the total quantity sold per ale, this is just kind of like another look at the numbers that we ended with, just like for more of a visual. So obviously, Alley Cat is a big seller, and we knew that going in, so we knew that we'd have to produce a lot of Alley Cat leading up because obviously it's high demand in the summer. So you don't want to just produce a lot in the summer. You kind of want to start that in April. So adding that fifth fermenter really helped us in that case. And then Edgar Ale and Taj Mahal, we kind of like are pretty similar. We sold them out about the same, which makes sense because Taj Mahal is a year-round ale, so it's not as popular. But Edgar Ale is only popular again like in the winter months, which isn't as big of a portion as the summer months. So it would make sense that Alley Cat is the most. So that's just kind of like another look at the total quantities we sold of each good. So why the simulation differed from the spreadsheet? So there were a couple reasons for this. The first one was the amount of each ale produced kind of changed slightly from what we originally planned based off of lost sales. So going in, we had planned a doc where we had written out how much of each ale we were going to produce every single production order, just kind of make it easier. And then we also added that fifth fermenter in April, so we had planned for that. But we didn't realize like going in that we were going to lose Alley Cat. So because we were losing Alley Cat, we started to produce more, which kind of changed the numbers of how much Taj Mahal and Edgar Ale we were producing than what we had originally planned. Also, that kind of ties in with the different levels of demand for each ale. So Alley Cat was slightly in more of a demand like earlier than I think we had expected. So that's like something to be aware of, especially when we plan for our next simulation. And then we also didn't know exactly when we'd be able to pay off our loan. So we hadn't included in that within our EBT because obviously that affects our overall EBT, and not knowing exactly when and then realizing we took out too large of a loan, like larger than we had to. We knew that that was going to kind of affect us. So we did want to kind of pay that off as soon as possible. And that was our goal going in.
Uh, I was gonna ask a question. So cause I remember we had to lower the prices at the end of the year, like Austin said, I believe earlier. So what months was that? Do you remember how much? Like we had like over 10,000 of units for each ale, and that's when we had to lower it a little bit.
Yeah, we also didn't lower our prices until I think it was the beginning of December, just because we didn't want to
Yeah.
lower them too much where we were going to
Yeah.
actually end up like losing and not having enough inventory. So we kind of erred on the side of caution, and we did adjust our prices slightly, which again goes off of a little bit different from our spreadsheet that we had originally planned on.
So next simulation, if we do lower prices, it'll be around October, November, and it'll ease into December a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the over the too many units was due to like not understanding the fifth fermentor, and then because we did two less of Alley Cat, and then we had to like overload on everything else.
Yeah, we did have
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Alright.
think another issue
So
with
I'll
the
keep a look
fifth
on that.
fermenter we had, just was that like the offset in time, because obviously it takes 14 days to ferment them, and we had our first 4 fermenters on that 2-week schedule, and then the 5th fermenter was like offset with that, so it would produce like 5 to 6 days after the other 4.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
slightly
And
off.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it changed up the timing a little bit.
And so
And
what exactly, just so we're all on the same page, what exactly are we doing for the next simulation? So to avoid to avoid not have any lost sales on alley cats, we don't overproduce on everything else.
yeah, so that kind of goes in like for the future. So for the future, we're going to continue to communicate as a team. I think that we all kind of agree that that's something we do very well, like especially in the
Mhm.
simulation. If we need to adjust something, like especially since like Austin's the one creating the actual production orders, like having good communication between all of us is very important, which we do, I
Mhm.
think, very well. And then obviously here's producing more Alley Cat in both April and May to minimize lost sales on Alley Cat, because I think we originally started producing more Alley Cat like in June, when originally we should start it in like May and April, so that way we have the inventory ready to go for the summer months. And then kind of monitoring the total inventory status to know how much of each ale will be produced, I think will also be helpful for us. And follow directions
Mhm.
clearly. Like this is kind of when we accidentally took out the $50,000 loan instead of the $30,000 loan. So following directions clearly, I think, is something that like, we could all work on, and like double checking we to make sure that we like before we like actually do something, double checking that it's correct and accurate. And then continue to follow the pricing as listed on the spreadsheet. And then because we, with the spreadsheet that we have originally from Excel, we can kind of see like how we adjusted the prices to get to like our highest EBT. So using those prices is also very helpful. And then to continue to pay off the loan as quickly and efficiently as possible. That really helped us to be able to grow our EBT, especially because we were able to pay it off before the summer months. We were able to really take in all of like the sales that we were receiving from Alley Cat to help bump up our EBT, because we no longer had a loan to pay off or worry about. That was extremely beneficial for us. So that's kind of what we plan to do for the future. Anyone else have
Yeah.
anything to add?
Yeah, I'll
It's
be
just
the monitor total inventory status. I'll be checking the graph. That's obviously falls on me, so I'll be doing that, and then especially keeping track when we add the 5th fermenter
Mhm.
Yes.
leading into the summer months. That's when leading into summer months, because obviously because Alley Cat's a summer thing, a summer ale, and that's when most of the units were sold throughout the whole year in the summer from Alley Cat. So I'll just keep an eye on the inventory status in April and May.
Yeah. Yeah, I think last thing I have to add is just I think we're doing a great job with focusing on what to produce and when to produce it. I think that now we're starting to get a really good hold, which we didn't necessarily have for previous simulations on the pricing. And
Yeah,
as a group, especially understanding, when we should up the price, when to lower it, and definitely by how much. That's a big deal. But definitely following the spreadsheet and pricing is going to help us a lot in the future.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's all we had.